you're gonna get free this time. Falling into a blue sky mind. Came to me in that song, my friend.
You are now entering the space of after the episode discussion on reciprocation. As a review, I talked about taking inventory. This is an incredible thing for all of us to be able to do. Where in your life have you or do you feel misunderstood, perhaps? Or you don't feel fully respected or fully seen or fully validated or fully loved? The most empowering slash hard thing is to know that the first place to go is yourself. If I am feeling misunderstood, let's say, it's always pointing the camera to me and going, oh, what part is maybe hiding myself unconsciously? Are there places where I can show myself and get a little bit more vulnerable and real with what's happening for me, to like expose a truer version of myself, to allow for the field around me and allow for the people around me to be able to see more of who I am and therefore be able to be present to, a lot of times we're not feeling heard, seen, respected, loved because we're not showing that and we're not connecting to that within ourselves. So we're feeling a detriment. And because we're feeling a detriment, we're now looking outside of ourselves somehow to get that filled. And as I already mentioned earlier in the episode, it's always going to fall short. It's never going to feel satisfying because what we're really looking for is our own acceptance, self-love, self-compassion, self-respect. That is something that can never be filled by somebody else. That doesn't mean people cannot bring that out in us. Take a gander at the places that feel most sensitive or wounded within you, because it's really a great way to discover the places that may want a little extra attention from you and through you. So we're moving from transactional. Again, that has a value within itself. It's the quid pro quo. You do this to get that. And as I was mentioning earlier with the kids, the more narrow the lens is, usually it's going to go into more transactional. So the more defined something is, like for them, their desire was a puppy. So they're like, quid pro quo, I clean the yard, that's going to get me a puppy. For me, I was like, oh, that's a great reciprocation. I feed you, I raise you, I cart you around everywhere. So cool. It feels good. I was getting that investment back of caring. I thought, well, this is great. They're actually appreciating all that I do for them. So we were not on the same page of definition of what that gift or that investment equaled or meant. And so that's going to go into some of the things that I'm sharing now came in after the discussion that I couldn't see before, or I'm gaining greater insight as we move from that quid pro quo, transactional reciprocation awareness to more of the relational, mutual, sacred current. We want to look at those places where we feel a little out of balance. Let's acknowledge that those places that are feeling out of balance are just allowing us to see the places in us that could have been in alignment. Let's say in one of your relationships, could have been in alignment, or a job. And we were in alignment, but there's something beckoning to grow within us. So things in relationships of all kinds are not a static experience. Relationships, as we grow, the relationship grows, or that is what needs to happen. If we're growing, and the other, whatever the other is, let's say another person, is not growing in the same way, then there's going to be a mismatch that you feel in the relational space. And sometimes when we're feeling out of balance in our reciprocation, the experience of feeling met, then it could be a beckoning that it's time to reevaluate and come into that relationship with some of what is wanting to grow within you and to see how that lands with the other person and with the relationship in general. So that awareness brought me into that next place of beyond what is coming up for me. Once we do that, if it's a relationship with another person, what is that other person sharing with you? Sometimes they can feel like everything's great. And that can be maddening because when we feel out of balance and our friend or a partner or a child does not, it can feel like we're gaslighting ourselves or the other person is gaslighting us. So, what is it that you're hearing from them? Let's say the example, they are feeling like everything's great. Okay, now look at the relational space. What is it that each person is putting into that relational space? If you're feeling like the other person, it's like everything's great. That could be a couple things. It could be that you're growing and it's time for you to come to the table and share some more aspects of where you want to see the relationship grow into, and always enter those conversations with curiosity. Also, what is the relationship saying? And that might sound weird to say, but if you were to just check in with the relationship itself, what is it telling you? Is it a happy relationship? Is it a relationship that likes to spend time together? Does it grow energy? Is it productive in some way? Does the relationship create laughter? Is it always looping, let's say, in the same kind of arguments? Check out the relationship itself because there really is like self, other, and relationship. And those are the three places that you want to begin to bring your focus in. I'm encouraging you all to do this, period. Take one relationship and go, I'm going to take inventory of me. I'm going to see what the other person shares consistently or acts on. Sometimes it's less about what's said and more about what's acted upon. And then what is the relationship doing? And then you want to look at where are your current values? And this is a big one. We do a lot of this scanning and inventory more so in business related endeavors, but certainly less, I believe, anyways, in our personal world. And when I say current values, because most of you on here value growth in whether it's emotionally, spiritually, in your life, gifts and service. And it can be a great thing each year minimum to check in and be like, are these still my values? Because depending on where you are in your life as well, sometimes we've been still holding on unconsciously to maybe our parents' values or succumbing to cultural values when maybe there's parts of you that feel or value things a little bit differently. I've said this on here before. My son and I, when he still lived at home, valued doing the dishes very differently. It doesn't mean that he actually didn't value cleaning the dishes, maybe slightly less than me, but how we did it and how we valued that was very different. And so check in with what's happening with you now and what feels like the highest three values for you in your life right now. Write them down. And then in relationship, how would you know if that value was being represented? And we got to pause there because I don't know that we think about it that way. And you want to ask yourself this: are there things that people are doing that are actually investing in the relationship that you may not be noticing? This is an important one because when we are unclear of the values collectively in the relationship and being in relationship with that person, how we would be able to value those experiences or bring them into the relationship so they feel seen, so they feel loved, so they feel held. This allows us to enter more curious and intimate conversations with the people we love. And my son, certainly, our relationship really helped me with this because when I was coming from that place of like, are you effing kidding me? Like, I'd get up in the morning and there'd be all these dishes in the sink. And for me, I really value getting up in the morning and having this space where I feel like I'm starting from a clean slate. And When I came from the place of detriment, that feeling, I'm always giving, but I'm never getting back. We talked about that imbalance, and I wasn't checking in with myself. Then I would put it on him. Like, I don't understand. You're not doing this. I'm asking you. I would raise my voice. I would do all the things. And guess what? Like, it wouldn't work. Go figure. Because I hadn't done my own inventory. However, when I would approach him in a way of more vulnerability and more truth and even more curiosity about myself, like, why is this even important to me? Is it really? Like, can I feel okay if there's dishes in the sink in the morning? And allowing myself to flex and get more vulnerable with him, the more that I could be real and in alignment with what I felt and curious, then all of a sudden he could hear me. It's like that example I gave a long time ago in here where he was much younger. So this is an example of I wouldn't sit down and have a deep conversation, but I was feeling irritable. And when I was feeling irritable and I was out of alignment with that truth, I was smiling at him. And those of you that don't know this story, I came home from a long day at my office and he was excited to see me. And there's probably a lot of backdrops of energy, like feeling guilt that I wasn't with him, all these things that weren't necessarily in the foreground, but they were starting to become in the foreground. And that was part of my healing at the time. So that starts by feeling a little edgy. And many of you that get care at Wellspring know this feeling. You'll come in and you're like, I don't know, I'm feeling really grumpy. I had this conversation with a couple people this week. That is a normal experience. So when I went through that when he was younger, I was trying to smile and trying to be happy when really it was bullshit. My whole skin was screaming. And the more out of alignment we are, the more we're going to actually project that onto the person. And so, as much as I was pretending by smiling, my smile probably like looked terrible because there was so much tension in my face. Like he amped up his energy even more because really he was just hearing incongruence. He would never say that at a 3-year old, but he could feel it. And even if you don't think you're a feeling creature, all information comes through vibration and frequency. And when we have tones within ourselves and we're projecting something else, people feel that. They feel the incongruence. And when I got in alignment and I just said, hey, honey, mommy's body's really grumpy right now. It's not you, but I suggest you put your pajamas on. He had his pajamas on before I finished that sentence. Why? Because I moved into alignment. So, all of that being said, when you can start to move into alignment and go, oh, these are actually the ways that I recognize importance and how I recognize feeling love. I think that's why the book, The Five Love Languages by Gary Chapman, I think it is, was so popular because it gave people instances for the first time to consider that, oh, how you view feeling loved is very different to how I recognized feeling loved. And it gave people permission to know that those could be different and ways into how both people could feel seen and heard and loved, even though it's done differently. And that's okay in general and relationship, but we have to get clear at what we value and how we recognize that coming towards us. Because you could say, well, I really love music and I really love concerts, but you have not shared that part of you that actually really loves country music. Now, your partner or your friend, they listen. They're like, okay, my friend likes music. They love concerts. So I'm going to get them a concert ticket to, I don't know, AC/DC. And you're excited. Have you ever felt that way? You're excited, but it doesn't land the way that you hoped. And it's not that you were off the mark per se. Let's say it was me. I didn't share with you the type of music I like. So I want you to use this as a metaphor of sometimes when we're feeling mismatched, it might not be that your relationship is doomed. It just means that it needs a little attention. And sometimes that is a calling for you to be able to show yourself a little bit more. And sometimes you even have to go further back than that and get clear for yourself what feels good. Because sometimes we're running around so much that we've forgotten what feels good. So we're so in detriment. We're just hoping someone else will figure it out for us. Like they're going to do something. And I'm not saying, and this is the beautiful paradox and the beautiful majesty and mystery of being human and being relational creatures, is that sometimes we do feel that way, meaning we feel in detriment, and somebody totally throws us off by doing the most incredible thing and it pierces us. So that doesn't mean that you can't contribute or someone can't contribute in your life and it without you telling them. Again, it's not the transactional, but it is an invitation to get a little bit more personal about what it is that you're feeling off and how can you share like, wow, lately I haven't felt as much presence from you. And I'm realizing what it's brought up in me is where I have been not present with myself. And I'm realizing because you mean so much to me that I've started to look for that presence through you. But I'm realizing that as much as I want that, it's starting with me. And part of starting with me is actually bringing this vulnerability of, I don't know. I do know that I can get really caught up in the quote unquote busyness of life and that sometimes I lose myself. And when I lose myself, I lose my presence. And I want you to know that if that happens, I notice that sometimes I get more quiet or sometimes I get a little edgy. I just want you to know that might be happening. And you are welcome to ask me. That is an example of how you could enter in curiosity, not that that person did anything wrong. And that's very hard when we're feeling upset or we're feeling resentment because someone is coming up short what we feel like again and again in our relationship. And that could be true. You might be at a crossroads in one of your relationships where it's time to get real together and see where both participants are willing to go so that that relationship can flourish to the next place that it needs to flourish. Or in the case that I gave you of my mom, I had to get more clear at what are our value systems and what are those golden threads that we relate to each other on so that I could give 100% through that lens, not 100% of all of me and everything I think and feel, but all of me through that connection. And that actually deepened our connection versus I could have just been like, she just doesn't understand me. I say these things and she goes off and tries to fix me, or she says these things that irritate me. But really, instead of doing that, I aligned with understanding more about myself and what felt true and inquiry with her in ways of like really getting to know her in ways that I was listening so that it allowed us to deepen what we could deepen. Every relationship is different in that way. And I believe even our partners are not meant to be everything of all of us, but rather a clear and aligned union that allow each person to continue to flourish, to continue to be curious, to continue to grow. And therefore, that continues to illuminate the space, the relational space. And that is where the sacred current of mutually experiencing life comes from. It's not I buy you concert tickets, so you buy me concert tickets, right? It might be I buy you concert tickets because you love music and I'm going to buy you the right ones now because you shared with me more of what you love. And for you, I am going to go camping because you love that. And I'm going to snuggle up to you because you really like quality time. It's not tit for tat. That is not the true relational reciprocation. And it does require some self reflection. The last thing I want to say about this that came up, and we've talked to Crystal and I have talked about this in the past, when we talk about agreements, we do this all the time in business, or if you buy a house, you read this long contract and you're signing it because you're saying, I am choosing to buy this house and take this mortgage. And there's certain accountabilities that come with that. So there's an aligned vision and aligned truth in that relationship between you and the bank, right? And you're both agreeing to something. The bank has agreed to pay for your house and you have agreed to pay the bank for that. So that is pure transactionality in that moment, but it's a really good representation of how do we translate agreements into our relationships. In some of my workshops, I talk about the 8 sacred pillars of agreement, and it's really translating the contractual kind of agreements more into the interplay of human relating. One of them is called the sacred pillar of sovereignty. So, in this relationship with reciprocation, how can you look at your own sovereignty to honor your own sacred power and to share only what you choose? So, that goes into choicing. We make a lot of assumptions. I think we can confuse being open with being clear. Like, you can be open and kind and available, and you need to be clear of what you're interfacing with or who you're interfacing with, like I mentioned earlier. So, this is where the sacred pillar of sovereignty comes in. Relationships need to accrue an emotional bank account or a sacred bank account. So, you're going to show yourself differently, let's say to your partner, than you will to, like I said earlier, the barista. Honor the sovereignty in others by actively witnessing and keeping what is shared within that container. So when you enter in these conversations with people you love, let them know that you're curious about what's important to them, what makes them feel safe, what makes them feel empowered, what's important for them that you hear. And that doesn't make you wrong. It's being able to honor the sovereignty in the other person as well. Another one is the sacred pillar of listening. Listen without needing to change or say anything. This is huge, especially if we're triggered. The closer we get into our relationships, the more we can get triggered because we're hitting these edges. I believe that conscious relationships are supposed to hit our edges. We're looking for that growth and that sacred current of reciprocity, right? And so when we get hit and somebody is sharing something, if you can see it through the eyes of pure love and listening and presence and go, okay, that doesn't mean that I take away what I'm feeling, but can I just listen for the sake of listening? And then you can bracket that for the moment if there is something that's coming up with you. And when we are triggered, we do need to bracket it for a moment. We need to take it and go, wait, what is it that I'm actually feeling? Because most often our triggers ultimately are not about the other person. It may be something you have to address with that person, but they are about what is happening with you. And it is the most freeing thing to be able to take that accountability. But when we're in a moment of trigger, we can't do that from a place of honor for ourselves or the other person. So, in relating, can you hold the listening skill in that moment? And can you also be listened to? Can you allow yourself to share and ask that person to become an active witness? We're in conversation all the time, but there are times, especially when you're approaching reciprocity, of saying, hey, this conversation is really about witnessing each other. So I want to hear how you're feeling about this. Let's say about how we're doing, about how our relationship is going, or maybe it's more fine tuned. I want to talk about reciprocity and how you're feeling. Are you feeling alive? What are the parts that you want to bring forward that you're curious about or you feel out of balance? I want to hear that. So you can go into those conversations with more intentionality that allow you to become an active witness. And if things do come up, you know that you get to bracket them and you get to address them at a different time when you are asking to be actively witnessed. I'm going to list one more. There are 8 of them. The sacred pillar of trust. Honor the thread of truth in what arises. Sometimes when we're in more delicate conversations with people, it's really easy to defend. Well, I didn't say that to hurt you. I didn't da 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 da. All these things that can come up because we're in protection, self-preservation mode. If you could just listen and go, okay, I'm going to honor whatever truth is coming up. Maybe it doesn't feel true for you, but it feels true for them. So honor it for the sake of honoring some thread of truth, and that there's nothing to fix. In the same way that you may have feelings of being out of balance and taking the accountability of where you may not be respecting yourself, where you may not be choosing yourself, where you may not be seeing and loving yourself, recognize that that happens in others as well. At some point, we all get the mulligan of our humanness to go, oh, yeah, I really got tight and defensive there. And I definitely projected onto you. The key is, do you come back and repair that? Do you come back after reflection and go, yeah, wow, I could really feel how defensive I got. And this is what came up for me. That is part of relational reciprocation. Can you come back and keep bringing your presence and keep bringing your value and keep bringing your vulnerability, all through the eyes of sacred agreements? It's time to rewrite how we do relationships in a more conscious way. When I talk about values, it's really a way into sacred agreements. The things that you value, I value presence, I value trust, I value love, I value sovereignty, I value reverence. So, in that, you'll find my 8 sacred pillars have all of that infused in there. Can we bring into the foreground some of the things for you that are valuable that you want to actually bring into the relationship, that give it a container? Because when we have those sacred agreements, it allows for that sacred current of reciprocity to become more alive, because we can trust going into that space, because we have certain agreements of knowing what you value and what that looks like, and knowing what the other person values and what that looks like, and agreements that you have within the container of the relationship that hold it. And when you're held in those value systems, that collective field of value, your relationships can only deepen. And the beautiful thing is that will allow the individual part of you to soar, to grow, to expand, to become more sovereign in your own being. May this episode bring you lots of exciting things and ways in which you can enter into your relationships from a new paradigm of relational reciprocation. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Until next time. And now, Trevor Hall with Blue Sky Mind.
It's in and through the body. All along, in and through the body. All along, it's in and through the body. All along, in and through the body. All along, it's in and through the body. All along, in and through the body. All along, it's in and through the body.
Much love.